So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna get this axle mount burned in, weld everything up, get everything painted, including the ram, make a puck to limit it, and we'll bolt everything back up, hook up our hoses, and this will be a wrap for this guy. And we'll put this guy to bed. What's going on YouTube? Levi at Old Iron Off-Road out here today banging on Big Bird with another video for the shop series. Today we're going to talk about hydraulic assist steering. What is it? Do you need it? And how to install it. So obviously in the world of rock crawling or just turning oversized tires in general, some upgrades to the steering components need to be made over just a general power steering setup. So what we do typically on these rigs with anything above a 35-inch tire is install a hydraulic assist setup. So what hydraulic assist is a system that allows pressure to be diverted from the steering box down to a hydraulic ram attached on the axle and directly to the tie rod. What this enables is a drastic improvement in turning force at the tie rod. So as you can see, we already have a hydraulic assist steering box attached on Big Bird. You can see here that we have the pressure ports drilled and tapped on the side of the box. Now we have one sitting on the crate over here that we've yet to unveil. Another video we haven't forgot. This is a Redneck ram from West Texas Offroad. What we do is we send these boxes out for a standard rebuild, and then at the time of rebuild we have them drill and tap these boxes in the pressure ports to aid in the hydraulic assist. Now basically how this works is these ports are directional, and as the steering input is rotated, fluid will flow from one port or the other depending on the direction of travel. The kit also includes a steering ram available in different stroke lengths and bore sizes of the actual ram itself. There's 1.5 inch, 1 3/4, and 2 inch. Now the selection of these kind of depend on what you're going to try to do with the truck. If you're running 35-inch tires and you're going to see a lot of street use, you'd probably want to use an 1.5 inch ram. That's going to not exert a lot of force, but it's going to be quick and it's not really going to change the steering feel as far as the speed goes. The bigger the bore, typically it tends to slow down the feel of the steering, but it does increase force. So if you were running 42-inch tires off-road, you're definitely going to want to go with a 2 inch. Now most of our stuff is going to see road use as well, and this one we're running 38-inch tires, so we're going to run an 1 3/4 inch. Also in this kit, it is included, you have a couple of tabs. These would typically be used to locate the ram to the tie rod and to the diff or the diff cover or the axle. You just kind of have to use your imagination when you're attaching these kits. It also comes with the appropriate hardware, fittings, and a section of hose to attach everything. Now we opt for a couple of upgrades when it comes to this stuff. We have our buddy at GRC cut us a couple of these big nasty mounts that we are actually going to attach to the axle tube. On this one, he actually opted for another upgrade that we don't typically do. Now, a large majority of the time, we set the toe and then we weld these tabs directly to the tie rod. Now, it works fine and has worked fine in the past. The only concern with that is if there's ever some deviations in specifications as far as replacement tie rod ends, it might make setting the toe a little difficult, because once the tie rod is located, once these are located on the tie rod, these have to be facing a very specific direction. So what we did is we turned to a buddy of mine, Chris, at the 4x4 garage, and he hooked us up with one of these no-slip clamps. You can see that it has some knurls machined on the inside of it to stop slipping on the tie rod, which was previously a problem with these clamps, and again is a reason why I always went with these, because the clamps that were available, they never stayed in the same spot. As you would cycle your steering, the clamp would end up slipping down the tie rod and you'd have to loosen it up and move it around. It was always a problem. To date, he has had 0 failures of these, and they have also not moved. These things are the real deal. So check him out at the 4x4 garage. So that should pretty much cover the general premise of the system and how it functions, let's jump into installing it. So as we mentioned, our buddy at GRC hooked us up with these big beefy mounts for the stationary ram into the mount. We're gonna be attaching these to the axle tube. So these mounts come with a couple of spacer washers. We're gonna weld these to the plate. Then we're gonna get the paint cleaned off of the axle tube, get the ram bolted to this guy, kind of get everything mocked up in position and see what it looks like. So we've got our ram bolted up to our axle tube side bracket. Placement of this ram isn't super critical, but now there's a couple of things that you're going to want to think about before you attach this ram. One is going to be steering travel. You absolutely have to measure your total steering travel, and you have to limit the ram stroke in some form or fashion. Now this is a 6-inch stroke ram, and I'm guaranteeing that we have less than 6 inches of steering travel. What'll happen is if we don't limit our ram is once the steering reaches its stop on the axles, the ram is still going to be trying to push on the studs of the high steer arm and can actually cause the high steer arms to shear. So what we do is we actually measure our total steering travel and then subtract about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch just to make sure that once everything is on its stops, nothing else is pushing on the steering arms. With that being said, to mock this ram up, we've got it fully compressed and we have the steering turned all the way to the driver's side, which would put the ram in its compressed state. So when we measure our steering stroke, we're actually going to limit the ram on the shaft side. So as the steering travels all the way to its lock towards the passenger side, there's going to be a puck inside of this made to a specific measurement that's actually going to stop the ram on this cap. So now we're going to tack this ram to the axle tube, get our clamp mounted to the tie rod, cycle the steering, measure our total steering travel, pull this guy back off, paint everything, make our limit puck that's going to go inside of this guy. We can get everything bolted in and finished up. Looks good. So our steering's turned all the way to the driver's side. With our ram mocked up now, what we're going to do is we're going to put a mark on the shaft. We're going to cycle the steering all the way to the left. And then, judging by the amount of shaft that's still remaining inside of this when we pull it out, we know how much to limit the ram. So it looks like we're using about 3 3/4 of an inch of stroke on this ram. Look all crazy and all over my damn head. I wear a ponytail because my hair is halfway down my back, and I double it up, not because I think a man bun is cool, but even with just a ponytail, it's still halfway down my back and it gets all tangled up and everything. So that's why I wear a ponytail. That's why I wear a doubled up ponytail. It's not a man bun, check yourself. Anyway, so we're using about 3/4 of an inch of stroke on this ram. That measurement's going to vary greatly depending on where you mount your ram, the angle that stuff is on, the length of the high steer arms that you're using, so on and so forth. So there's no real go with it measurement as far as the ram stroke goes. You've got to kind of mock everything up and definitely measure your stroke before you commit to anything. Again, the last thing you want to do is overshoot it and end up shearing a high steer arm off on the trail because you were running because you didn't limit your ram internally enough. So I'm happy with how everything looks. We're going to take all this stuff off, paint it. I'm going to build a puck to go inside of this ram. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to get this axle mount burned in, weld everything up, get everything painted, including the ram, make a puck to limit it, and we'll bolt everything back up, hook up our hoses, and this will be a wrap for this guy. And we'll put this guy to bed. All right, so we've got the ram in my custom soft jawed vise. We've got roughly 2 1/4 of stroke that we need to take out of this thing, and we're going to achieve that by a piece of heavy wall DOM and 2 washers that are cut down to a 5/8 ID. We're going to TIG weld these onto this puck, and then this will actually set on the shaft inside of the ram so that it will basically take this much stroke out of the ram. So next thing we need to do is disassemble this ram. Now this is a new design ram from West Texas Offroad. Their older rams were a little bit more difficult to tear down. These are kind of nice. So basically what you do is pull this fitting out, and I've already broken this loose. Pull the fitting out, thread a bolt in, and you're just going to unthread this cap. And then from there, we're going to remove the ram. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take this nut off the back side of this shaft, and then this guy is going to actually install in between here and there. And hopefully that makes a lot of sense now. All right, so we've got our spacer welded up. We're gonna pull this nut and this piece off the back of the shaft. Slip this guy over the shaft and put it back together. Wrap your corners. No, seriously, always wrap your corners. Alright, so we got our pieces all painted up, ready to bolt together. just want to make sure that your fittings aren't going to hit anything. They're not going to bind up on the tie rod as it cycles or the drag link. Looks like we've got everything pretty much clearing out of the way, so the sticker's a little wadded up, but it'll work. Gotta have stickers, man. And I will say too that it's worth keeping these little plugs that they send. These are pretty heavy steel plugs, and if something happens, you ever have a hose failure on the trail, pull your hoses off, throw this guy on, and you can get off the trail without losing all your power steering fluid. So we've got a couple of 90-degree fittings that we're going to install on the side of the box. Now I will mention that these are directional, so if you hook these up backwards, you're going to be in for a treat the first time you try to cycle your steering. Your steering's going to shake back and forth violently. It's going to do all kinds of weird stuff. Normally, if you're not sure, what I would recommend doing would be leaving the ram end unbolted from the tie rod and actually cycling the steering and see which way the ram moves. If the ram moves opposite of the direction that you're steering, you've got your hoses reversed is the easiest way to do it. I've got another vehicle with hydraulic assist outside, so I know which one's which. Bottom in my application is going to be the inside fitting closest to me. And there you have it. We've got the hydraulic assist all buttoned up on this guy. Still a few things left to do as far as the steering system goes. We've got to plumb in the hydro boost and all that good stuff. One more thing I do want to add is a good power steering cooler is definitely important on this system, since we're running the hydraulic assist and the hydro boost. Definitely want to add that to the list of must-haves. Even if you're just running hydraulic assist, when you get this guy on the trail, really start working the steering. Fluid's going to heat up and shorten the life of the pump, definitely. So for a long, happy pump life, throw a cooler on there. And like I said, I think that about wraps it up for this video. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. Click the bell icon for notifications on new uploaded videos. And as always, enjoy.